So today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to do a US history quiz. I had gotten a suggestion to do something about US history or to find a series about US history. Before I went and found something, I thought it would be interesting to do something like this. This says 40 hard trivia questions and answers about the US. We'll see. Some of these are dumb and the answers are super obvious, and some are actually pretty good. So we'll get into it and see how hard it is. Ten seconds. Everybody, see how many of these you can get right. I'll pause it probably right before the 10 seconds is up just to give everybody a couple more seconds. Unless the answer is ridiculously obvious, and then I'll probably just let it go. It's oh, does everybody know it's Alaska and Hawaii? The Lusitania. Yeah, this one's the Lusitania. The first couple have not been very hard, so we'll see. This one has a super famous clip from FDR. December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. It's December. Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederation. This one may be hard for people that aren't from the US. The Mayflower was the name of the ship that brought pilgrims to the US, but we're taught this in grade school. You're probably not taught this in grade school if you're not from the US, so this one might be a hard one. Is this even really history? This just happened. It's Pakistan. They found him in Pakistan. Salem, Massachusetts. This is a tricky one because the legislation is introduced in a different year that the law of prohibition is introduced. So this is kind of a tricky one. I'm going to go ahead and guess they mean 1920, but the legislation was introduced, I'm almost positive it's introduced in 1919. And then the law actually goes into effect in 1920. Um, this kind of depends on how you're taught the American Revolution. Um, I've I've kind of learned two different ones. Bunker Hill or Breeds Hill and Saratoga. Saratoga is a bigger battle, so that's probably Saratoga, probably. Some of these have gotten decently hard. Um, and just kind of like this one. This is super random. I'm gonna say true, and I don't know for sure if it was 2 cents an acre, but I know it was ridiculously cheap. Um, that Alaska didn't work out the way that Russia quite wanted it to, so they were trying to get out from under it. This is the Marshall Plan. This was the plan to basically throw money into Europe to rebuild Europe after World War II. It was kind of it was done kind of for two reasons. One, the European the major European economies had been basically wiped out during World War II. It was hard to have a stable global economy with those economies on their back. So that was kind of one reason. The other reason was it was a way to kind of shift countries onto the US side for the upcoming Cold War. All right, so this one's kind of a giveaway. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Well, I mean, what war do y'all think it is? It's the Mexican American War. Philly. If you don't follow American politics closely, this may not make a ton of sense to you, but it's the Republican Party. The Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln was the first president elected from the Republican Party, and they were a abolitionist party. This is something that Wilson pushed hard for. Um, and then the House, and basically, because the political establishment didn't like Wilson, did not want to get involved with like global politics, or um, they didn't want to get pulled into being involved all around the world or in Europe's issues or things like that. They never ratified it. It's the League of Nations. Mm, God, I have it right. Mm, Sitting Bull? It's something Bull. Something Bull. Oh, it is Sitting Bull. Um, So obviously you have the era of the Civil War. Battle of Gettysburg is, if not the most famous battle of the Civil War, it's certainly one of them. 1863, I believe, was when the battle was. This is when the U.S. gains control of the Philippines. Mm, if this is the first capital of the United States, once it's actually the United States, yeah, because you have York, and you have Philly. If this is after the United States, New York, maybe? This one's hard. It is New York. Okay, so that one threw me off a little bit. Not only because of the whole like capitals pre and post like United States itself, but the question itself is just hard. I did not know if that one would be right. This is a dickhead one. The Declaration of Independence is signed throughout a couple of months. It's not like it wasn't a thing where everybody came in and signed it all at one time like is kind of commonly portrayed. Um it I think this one could really be July or August. So, I'm not really sure which one. So the text was agreed to, but they also again they didn't all sit down and sign it at one time for the last question. So that one's that one's a little bit out there. Um, True or false? In 1962, racial segregation in schools became unconstitutional. Uh, False, right? That was in the 50s. I would not have guessed 1954. I mean, I might have guessed it, but it would have been purely a guess. But I was pretty sure it was in the 50s. Great Depression starts with the stock market crash in 1929. So, stock market crashes. There are some rebounds, some bear market rallies, but all in all, that's normally 1929 is normally the year given for when the depression starts. Where'd the music go? Jimmy Carter, and he is about the only president ever that would have done this. I believe, which by the way, I've talked about this before, the Boston Massacre is the most non massacre to have ever massacred. It is literally like five people died. Mostly it was snowball throwing and shellfish, and like it's the propaganda machine of the colonies was in overdrive for this. I believe it was 1770. Yeah. They have had some hard ones on here, some random ones, some that even I was like, I don't know, this is a difficult one. And then they have some like this. Like, Jesus, it's the Underground Railroad. Again, Underground Railroad, and then this one. The Challenger and the Columbus, the Columbia. It's something along those lines. I think it might be Columbia. There we go. New Deal. And this is the New Deal is one of the oh major economic reforms that it's really hard to get a beat on. You know, most major economic reforms, you can see it play out poorly or well over time. With the New Deal, World War II starts right after. And so it's hard to see what has an effect on what. Like how much of it is war related, how much of it is New Deal related. And I tend to lean less New Deal related because Britain went polar opposite of the New Deal and they did not have near the economic problems that the US did. 1920. This is one of the most famous speeches in American history, certainly. It was given in Washington, D.C. Major march in D.C. He has a logger named after him today. I believe it's Samuel Adams. Is this history? Like, technically, I guess. But, like, this wasn't even a decade ago. Edward Snowden. Which president had his sister as the first lady? Hmm. Has that ever happened? I'm trying to think. I don't know if that's ever happened. I wonder who they say. That was that was not James Buchanan's sister. That was his niece. Okay, so Omaha was one. The other one was pretty U.S. sounding. Obviously, it's named after a U.S. state. It's Utah. Again, you have the Civil War era. Um, The end of the Civil War was 1865. The way that I've always remembered it is because, well, I kind of line it up in my head with Reconstruction after, and it's right in the middle of the 1860s. So, dead center of the 1860s, 1865 is when it ends. Who was the first woman to lead an armed assault of U.S. forces? Wow. Um, yeah, I don't know. You have stories during the Revolutionary War of women fighting, but I can't think of any leading U.S. forces off the top of my head. Um, and would that even be considered U.S. forces? Because really, it's the Continental Army. They're fighting for independence, so I don't even know if that would count anyway. I have no idea. I literally don't even have a guess as to who this could be. Harriet Tubman. Wow. Harriet Tubman. I literally, I would have never ever guessed that. If you would have given me 1,000 guesses, I wouldn't have guessed Harriet Tubman. This is kind of a trick question because the famous movie from Apollo mission is Apollo 13. Apollo 11 is actually the first one that landed on the moon. Apollo 13 was supposed to go back, ended up having complications and didn't make it. Didn't make it to the moon. They made it back barely, but they didn't make it to the moon. Okay, so this is the War of 1812. It was not in 1812 that the White House was burned down. This is a historical story that kind of changes depending on who you read, as far as like why it was done and who ordered it and all of that. Um, I believe 1814 was the year that they actually burned down the White House. Yeah, 1814. Okay, now this is another difficult one. Which professional sports league was formed in 1949? Let's see. The NFL just celebrated their 100 year, so it definitely wasn't the NFL. I have no clue about hockey. Baseball has been around forever. So out of the four, I would guess it's basketball. So NBA. But if it's not one of the four big ones, then I have no clue. What, was there like some professional soccer league formed in 1949? Awesome. NBA. Put that in the category of useless bullshit information that I'll have in the back of my head forever now. Which amendment to the Constitution formally abolished slavery in 1865? Um, the reason that or the way that I keep this in my head is it's the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was actually penned to be something different pre Civil War, but it ends up being the amendment that frees the slaves, and that's what it is. Elfrith Alley, the oldest continuously inhabited street in the U.S., is in which city? I have no clue. It's one of those old ass East Coast towns for sure. Yeah, I don't have a clue. I literally have no idea. I could guess about 10 towns and I'm sure it would be one of them, but I have no clue. Philly. Okay, so how many did that was decently hard. It went back and forth. There were some super easy ones and there were some that were difficult. Um, I'm trying to think of how many I missed. I don't even know. Maybe four. Um, Although the Buchanan one, that's kind of well, actually I'm looking that up real quick. James Buchanan. James Buchanan, first lady. Yeah, for her uncle James Buchanan. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, James Buchanan was unmarried, and his niece served. So I don't know if that one technically counts as a miss for me, but I don't know, three or four somewhere in there is how many I missed. Let me know how you did. There were some on these that were a little tricky, like the prohibition. That one that really could have been one of each year. The Declaration of Independence signing could have been one of a couple months. Um, I don't know. There were some tricky ones in there, but everybody let me know. I'm going to jump into a couple of different new series over the next week or two. So keep an eye out for those. One of them will be the Swedish pilot series. So I've got that one recommended a ton. That's going to be one of the ones that I do. So keep an eye out. As always, if you like the channel, want to support what we're doing over here, you can like, comment, subscribe. Help us keep building everything, and I'll see you next time.